Dylan very deservedly pointed out how we always, usually in the same episode weekly, say, we're not that big on genre, and then spend an hour talking about the specifics of the genre of everything we talk about. So, point taken. So we're going to be very clear about the genres we're talking about today, Tom. Are you ready?
Oh, so clear.
And we are quoting rock writers in the 2000s here, so bear with how many words are used to describe these particular genres. Quote, a combination of moody post-grunge rock and breezy Y2K pop, end quote.
Sure, I know exactly what they're talking about.
A, quote, beast of a glossy pop rock hook, end quote.
Whew.
Any guesses? It's weird to ask you any guesses because we plan these in advance. Let's just start the show.
What is going on, everybody? I'm Tom.
And I'm Pat.
We're best friends, and you're listening to the Reminiscent Podcast. Yeah, I hope we're doing a Michelle Branch episode.
We are. It's Michelle Branch. Yes.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do with this episode, because I think I said it this way on Twitter this week, but we're Eat, Pray, Loving it this year. We're going to try to be as close to the show as possible, as normal, but maybe unlock a few different anecdotes along the way. And these things are all tangential. They're not going to be totally out of left field, I don't think. We had done a Hoobastank episode before. You guys were like, hey, there's a sequel, and it's really good. And so we did an episode on that, even though we had kind of stopped going toward in the nu metal direction a few years ago, it feels like. But I'm sure there are receipts that would show that to be false, that you will screenshot and tweet to us promptly after hearing this. But that's kind of the point of all this. We're coming clean with it. Anyway, we're going to do Michelle Branch because why, Tom? Why are we here? How did we get here? I'm excited about it, but it was kind of a blur. And then she had a kid, and the listeners of this show spammed her Twitter feed during the 9th month of pregnancy pretty consistently. So there's no reason she would have seen it anyway, but extra reasons she would not have seen any of those. Please. But do you remember how it started?
I have no idea how it started. I think it was a one-off thing on Twitter that the people really connected with, and then it's a joke that has gone too far at this point, and we're here doing it. Well, we're doing the damn thing.
Somebody brought up, I don't know if it was covers or what. Anyway, Vanessa Carlton and Anna Nalick and Michelle Branch all came up, and we'll talk about all that later, if it's even right to be mentioning those particular artists together like that, because she references Avril Lavigne in one of her MTV recaps of the music video itself, which is a whole other thing. But I wanted to kind of save some of that towards the end. I wanted to kind of structure the show because we're going a little off of our comfort zone here with fast facts and then things like that about the Spirit Room, we're going to focus on the song Everywhere just to give us a little basis of things, but then we can maybe talk about it as we roll through, if that sounds good with you, Tom. But we had officially asked her to come on. There's no reason she should have. It's fine that she did not. But everyone was like, hey, do it anyway. And we're like, fine, don't tempt us with a good time. So here we are, by popular demand. Welcome to the Michelle Branch episode, which we are very happy and joyful to do.
Before we get too into it, have you ever heard of the term chuggy?
No.
All right. So it came to Megan and my attention last week when one of her friends who's in the high fashion industry, she's a designer, used the term, and you said eat, pray, love, and so the term chuggy refers to people who are Gen Z would say it to people maybe our age or older who were stuck in the trends of the early 2010s, and it's very it's chuggy would be an eat, pray, or a live, laugh, love sign, or Minion memes, an older generation that's out of touch.
Interesting.
So Megan and I
I want to be very clear though. Eat, pray, loving and live, laugh, loving are two entirely different headspaces.
No, totally different.
Remarkably different. Yeah.
But anyway, so I feel like it's a term that has come to my attention lately, and we are, I don't know, we're chugging it up, I feel like, and I'm pretty excited for it.
Fair enough. I think it's chuggy because we're using it wrong probably, but who cares? It's the Michelle Branch episode. We're just going to dive right in. Let's start here. The Spirit Room turned 20 recently, which is the record featuring a ton of hits that you all know. 3 big ones to be specific. Released by Maverick Recording Company and Warner Brothers Records, August 2001. The album's title comes from a name of a bar in Jerome, Arizona, near Branch's hometown in Sedona, which, have you ever been out that way, Tom?
I haven't at all. I mean, Denver, I've like my explorations west are Denver and then nothing else until coastal California. So that whole area I've never been to.
Sedona, it might be, it's kind of from what I can tell, I've only been there a couple times, but kind of a hippie haven. It seems like there's little like...
Sure. Arizona seems to be.
There's hikes where parts of it, I guess, it's kind of got a weird gunny past couple of decades, it feels like. But yeah, there's like these weird like spirit vortexes and stuff. Your wife honestly would probably love Sedona. But like there's hikes where you can kind of like just get out into it. It's very beautiful, colorful rocks, reds and oranges and things like that, very southwest. But very interesting that she's from there. It's one of my favorite places in the United States, I'd have to say. It's very beautiful. Maybe we'll retire there someday and set up our reminiscent podcast recording studio when you, Zach, and I have a couple houses in a row or something.
Yeah. I feel no emotional or spiritual draw to the Southwest at all. Like anything mildly desert or whatever. I can't vibe it, man.
A red rock doesn't make you doesn't make your heart sing?
I'd rather see a green tree.
Wow. There you go. Well, this is where the feuding starts, folks. Tom and I, as far as like the geography that pleases us, we're pretty split. So this is, you come here for some spicy stuff on the show. This is us feuding.
Drama.
So I know. Anyway, the album debuted at number 28 on the U.S. Billboard 200, producing 3 top 40 hits, as we mentioned. Goodbye to You, which somebody, stealing someone's joke on Twitter from a few days ago, but was basically like, I identify as a he, him, and I'm in my late 20s, but whenever Goodbye to You comes on the radio, I am 55, divorced, and a woman, like, hands down. Like, I am just driving in the car thinking of a lost lover I don't or have never had, but it just takes me to that place. Everywhere, which is the song we're talking about today, and All You Wanted, which we were talking on Twitter, and I think Jeremy spoke up, like, that's actually my favorite. I think it might be mine too, but that's the one that charted the highest. I think it got all the way up to number 6, Tom.
Jesus. Is this this is a debut album, right?
That's my understanding, yeah. I think so. She was, let's talk about this part of it here for a quick second. She was not an old person when she wrote this song. Can you fill in some of the blanks there? How she was discovered, the age?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when you look at the Wikipedia, it's like, this is her early beginnings. It says she wrote Everywhere when she was 15 years old, originally composing it as an acoustic love song. After she turned 17, Danny Strick, the executive A&R manager of Maverick Records, saw her performing as an opening act for pop rock band Hanson. Okay, the beginning of her story is not opening for Hanson. Like, there's a lot of information missing.
I feel like we run into that a lot in some of these like sweeping Wikipedia like early years paragraphs on some of these bands. It's like, next thing you know, she was sharing the stage with the biggest pop group for like a 25-year span. 25 might be a little, you know what I'm trying to say, but essentially she just happened to be opening for Hanson. Anyway, she was discovered and she was discovered, and then the album she put out and named after a bar near her hometown went certified double platinum, which is all before she could vote. So that's pretty wild.
Crazy.
I think
crazy.
I can't think of I wasn't sure if you wanted to play this game, like think of one of the songs we wrote when we were in high school.
I know.
That's
my favorite game.
And it would be it wouldn't be fun anyway, but when we're talking about somebody as prolific as Michelle Branch, I almost don't even want to do it. Don't even want to go there. The larger point, obviously being like, holy f***. And I think she even touches on this, and we'll get to this later, when she was filming the music video. She's like, I'm 17 here. I had to have like a tutor on set because I couldn't even, there was like labor laws against how long I could be there and everything like that. I had to like technically go to school and like, how am I affording this giant apartment I'm living in the music video and things like that? So just like an extremely a teen in this situation. But the chorus to Everywhere was named the 77th greatest hook of the 21st century by Billboard in 2017, Tom, which is...
Who has to listen to every hook and rank?
You know, sometimes we run it, and I think, I don't know if like one of the, B stories or like side quest of the show is to like poke holes in music journalism and the absurdities. Because like, would it be a stretch to have called it the 74th? You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Anyway, the video we're talking about today for this song, For Everywhere, and we could have talked about a ton of hits off the Spirit Room, but it was selected as the Viewer's Choice Award at the 2002 MTV Video Music Awards. There's a lot of MTV love for Michelle Branch, it seems like. She had the look back at the video interview and everything like that. There was a lot of clips on her Twitter feed of her talking with Carson Daly. He's like trying to learn guitar, through her. A lot of, we have yet to go like deep TRL exploration on the show, but it comes up more often than I think I was willing to admit when we started the show. I guess I had assumed it had died, but really it was super wheelhouse. Was it on your radar at the time?
I mean, only because I remember downloading, it was Blink performing Anthem Part 2 live on TRL. So I only knew of TRL because of the stolen live performances of Blink 182, but I'd never actually seen it. But I assumed it was like it died in the early 2000s, but it went until like 2017, didn't it?
Yeah, I think we probably undersell the role MTV played in a lot of like the 2000s experience, whether it was like short-lived sketch shows or some of the music, honestly, like web efforts, podcasts and things like that. Was it that they who would have aired Band in the Bubble with Cartel, all that stuff? But like, I wanted to think in my head that MTV has just been ridiculousness 24/7 for like 30 years. But
right.
I think extremely deep into the early 2010s, it was still making earnest efforts to be a music television channel. But anyway, in 2001, Branch told MTV that she likes to keep her songs open-ended so people can listen to it and say, oh, I think it means this. I've been through that, instead of having it be about anything specific. Thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, it's interesting because we talked, or no, it wasn't on this show. I was on the Justin Experience we talked for 2 hours about Even If It Kills Me by Motion City Soundtrack. And we kept mentioning over and over how the specificity of JCP's lyrics really helped us like cling to the song. However, when you leave it general, you can fill in the blanks. I think like, I've never read the books or seen the movies, but in Twilight, they wrote the main girl's character.
Me neither.
They never described her physical traits. Oh yeah, you neither, I'm sure.
No, that's I guess I can relate to this, but it's tough for me given how little I know about the franchise, but okay. I'll try to hang in.
Okay. But no, I was told that the main girl, they didn't describe her physical characteristics at all, so that like the woman reader could put themselves in the story. So
you could at least say Bella's name, Tom.
Bella. I was like, it's not Annabelle. What? Bella. But yeah, it's interesting. Like we talk a lot about how, this song was written just for me. But when I think that, it's usually because of the specifics. If we're talking top 40 pop, they're going kind of as general as possible. So that makes sense. No disrespect to the song.
We've found on the show that like we're willing to go to extreme lengths to make it about us. So like,
right.
Maybe that's something artists realize, or maybe not. We talk about Ben Gibbard and Jim Atkins talking all the time about like, it ends up, whatever it is to you, that's what it is, perception, reality, all that stuff. Yeah. But I think if there's anything between you and me just on this program, like it doesn't matter whether it's Motion City Soundtrack or Michelle Branch or Top 40. It's just like, it's interesting that someone chose my life to be what drives their art. That's so nice of them.
Right.
We've never even met. I've never been to Sedona. So anyway, let's jump here if you don't mind. There was a question I wanted to save to the very end, but like we're kind of like dipping our feet, getting a little wading around here a little bit. Let's go back to the genre. How'd you feel, I don't know, just as a kid on the radio, Star 104, Erie, Pennsylvania, riding in the car. Oh, yeah. You're not into pop punk yet, but pop rock is like extremely a part of what you're hearing, I guess, just because what else are you going to be hearing? Before the music Sherpas that we talk about on the show come into play, before we even get into high school. I'll read them word for word again real quick, whether this was on our mind or not, but combo of moody post-grunge rock and breezy Y2K pop, or a beast of glossy pop rock hooks from everywhere specifically. Thoughts on, I don't know, is pop rock, how much effort or how much credit does it get in setting up musical tastes of the many? I think you see a lot of the bands we talk about on the show end up covering a lot of these songs. Like how much weight should we put onto any of it. I don't know. I don't want to just like, it's like, hey, let's talk about all of it at once, Tom. I'm trying to go bit by bit here and try to tell the story. But like, you're a kid, you hear pop rock on the radio for the first time. Do you know what you're hearing? What are you thinking?
I do remember really enjoying this era of top 40 radio. My interest in it started waning around like 2003 or whatever, but I do remember really enjoying a lot of stuff on the radio at this time. And, you know, I actually have an interesting quote here that I was able to pull. I think it was just from Wikipedia, but it's specifically about, you know, you kind of gave the joke about like a mix of rock and pop or whatever. But Clive Davis, who's like one of the biggest record execs of all time, Dr. Hot Topic's dad, I presume. He's the president of Columbia Records, founder of Arista Records, CEO of RCA Music Group. So he's one of the biggest guys. He described John Shanks, who is the producer of The Spirit Room, as, quote, the father of that guitar-driven kind of pop sound, end quote. He says, as his work with Branch, Clarkson, Duff, and Simpson employed many acoustic guitars in contrast to the synthesizer-heavy sound of the pop music of the period. I think that's really, really fascinating because I do remember, like, you know, the 80s weren't that far away. In the 90s, they were playing with a lot of those synths too. So at this time in music, I mean, I barely remember it. I was
Is
10?
he responsible for Camp Rock airing on the Disney Channel?
I don't know, man.
Is Camp Rock the pinnacle of glossy pop rock in Y2K?
Well, no, I think...
Or sorry, I'm mixing up my words. Is it the pinnacle of breezy Y2K pop? Sorry, I just
No, I just think it's interesting because, like, I guess having acoustic guitars in pop music wasn't really the sound of this era of breezy Y2K pop. And now it seems like such a given, but like maybe we're not giving this album or Michelle Branch enough credit for like being, or the producer for like trailblazing an entire like subgenre of pop itself with like guitars in it. It seems like it wasn't that huge.
Yeah, like I guess because we've talked about this, some of the pop songs that got covered by the bands we talked about on the show, and we've done an episode on Day to Remember covering Kelly Clarkson's Since You've Been Gone, which wasn't even a stretch because Clarkson had Converse on in the video, and it was already a rock song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So we just took that and we're like, this couldn't make any more sense. Like, I've been mentioning Chuck Klosterman a lot on the show lately because I've been excited to read his book about the 90s, but what's been kind of mentioned to me is in a few interviews, he's been like, I think the 90s might be the last decade you could really measure as like a specific time period. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's true at all. You know, like obviously we do a podcast about that very topic. So like, of course you and I would disagree with that sentiment, but like I'm Blue doesn't come out in like 2006. You know what I mean? Like some of the Night at the Rocks, if like the soundtrack to Night at the Roxbury is so like techno adjacent and people are just discovering what synthesizers can really do that aren't like first gen, can't make the sound of a brass instrument, pianos from the late 80s, you know what I mean? So like there was just like, hey, look what computers can do thing with boy bands in the 90s and everything. But like, yeah, like, I don't know. I'm ready to crown anyone we mention as like being very important for the 2000s and what guitars, like how much guitars are in pop. Like I'm very excited about it. I think it probably, there's like an indirect line to like why we like the music we like and just in general and all that stuff. I don't know. I'm ready to like make like irresponsible sweeping claims. I just am excited. I've been listening to Michelle Branch for like 2 months and I'm just like high on the supply, ready to be blinded, prisoner of the moment, all that stuff.
Yeah, man, it's such a good song. Yeah, rock pop adjacent. I think at this time in my life at 10 or 11, you're just like, I don't know. I was just like looking for ultimate hype all the time. And that's what this song was. It was like before I wanted music to like make me feel depressed. I just wanted to like, I mean, shit, let's talk about the radio in general, how like rare it was just to hear a song that you really loved. And I do remember like, you know, I would get in my mom's car and just like hope for Michelle Branch to come on or like Vanessa Carlton. Like, I don't know, man. It was like even before hit clips, before iPods.
Yeah, what a moment hit clips is having. I think there was a viral tweet about a month ago. People are like, Spotify's not great. This is something we've been actually aware of forever. There's a great Twitter joke format, you know, reject modernity. I'm going to ask you to edit this out, but it'd be just too much work for you. I f***ed up saying a word, and that's just what happened on the show. Anyway, embrace tradition is the theme of the tweet, and it's always something just f***ing ridiculous. Hit clips might be worse than 8 tracks as like a concept, right? Like, I don't know if we want to spend too much time on this, but I've heard more about hit clips in the last month than I did
when they were
in the 2000s.
around.
That's for sure.
For sure. I had a friend that had them and I was just mystified. But yeah, dude, there's something so charming about like I don't know. The radio is so inconvenient to listen to. And I'm totally romanticizing it because you had to wade through so much bullshit. But like when the song came on, it was just like, oh yeah. And now it's just like every song you could ever think of is just in your pocket, ready to go at all times. And this is one that I look forward to.
I'm going to like be old man yells at cloud just for a second. Cause I feel like we've been like waiting our whole lives to become the people we hate. It's like a very like, I can't wait for the show to become the thing we didn't want it to become, and then people start hating it, like, and then not have capitalized on the peak of the content or anything like anyway, like this train's off the rails. We're going, it's going to be a bad finish. But anyway, let me just pose it like this and like take a step back. Is the burden of choice ever cumbersome for you, whether it's picking music or watching shows? Like, I don't know, the moment Michelle Branch does grace the airwaves, like it was a nice time driving out to Beach 6 on Presque Isle State Park in Erie, Pennsylvania. It was just like, it's going to be a nice afternoon. We got a good one.
No, I mean, there's some things that I'm nostalgic for, but terrestrial radio is not one of them. But it's nice to think about, but never in a million years would I give up my Apple Music subscription for something less convenient. And, honestly, as I'm listening to like only Japanese pop punk right now, which is not on Apple Music, I feel like I'm back in that time of like struggling so hard to find the thing you want to listen to. Like, I remember getting a blank tape from a friend of mine and just hovering over my little boombox with the tape recorder trying to get No Diggity. And I finally got it, but I was like across the room when it started. I ran over and I hit record and I missed like the first 3 seconds of it. But like I had the song that that I just like wanted to listen to on repeat. I don't want to go back to song by chance or whatever. Like,
yeah,
give me all of the choices. I don't feel overwhelmed.
One thing that like the process has changed a little bit is like, oh, I'm actually a huge fan of this band, being a realization you have later. It's not like, hey, you should look into this band and you have to see the word and type it in and search it and look it up, which is, I'm not saying it's a bad process. It's very an efficient way to share music. Our Twitter followers, I love hearing about what everybody's listening to all the time. But looking at the Spirit Room in particular, and honestly just like Sugar Ray's existence like years later, or even Everclear, just being like, I've been a fan of this band, but these bands as a 90s person for like years plural, and I just never bothered to like think of it on purpose or like actively, you know what I mean? Just kind of like, oh, I've loved this band for years, and yet it hadn't occurred to me. The Spirit Room is like the latest example. Like, oh, half this album I'm aware of, like incredibly aware of, whether it's through movie scenes or listening to it or this and that or covers and all that, or maybe a combination of all three. And it's like, oh, I actually love Michelle Branch. So when people on Twitter were like, you guys should do a Michelle Branch episode, after like some cursory Googling, it was like, that sounds honestly pretty nice. Like I would be glad to talk about Michelle Branch for a little while. Had to take the quick swing on Twitter and just be like, is like there a social media manager who might happen to see this? Maybe not, but had to ask like, but yeah, does that happen to you? I mean, I can't imagine that. Like, are there any major stick out examples of like, oh, I've actually really liked this band for a long time and you just hadn't realized it for years?
Not to the extent that it sounds like you're talking about, but you mentioned Everclear and Sugar Ray and stuff. And this is back before, I think, Spotify, well before Apple Music, when Pandora was still what everyone was on. I remember making a Pandora station that I'd been curating for months. It was Everclear with the Sugar Ray stem to it, and then if you thumbs down Red Hot Chili Peppers anytime they come on, you get like the perfect late 90s early 2000s like alt rock playlist. And Megan and My First Dance was Everclear. Like I remember casually hearing that band on the radio, but then when I could just like listen to all of their albums, it was like, oh shit, dude, they are awesome. Oh shit, Sugar Ray is awesome. Spin Doctors, give me more of that shit. Like they all have more than just the couple songs you hear on the radio. It has been fun to go back later and listen, especially prepping for this episode. I listened to a lot of Michelle Branch, a lot of Vanessa Carlton, and it's nice to like not have that like toxic masculinity vibe of like being 13 and being afraid to like a song written by a girl because that's just like what dumb boys are worried about, and just like unapologetically love Michelle Branch's music and not feel the fear of being judged by someone. It's so much nicer to go back and enjoy it now, windows down, than it was to enjoy it windows up as a kid.
Yeah. We talk about windows up, windows down all the time. Was there a sense of, I don't want to call it relief, but maybe when years later, our favorite bands were covering all the pop rock songs you loved on the top 40 charts like a few years earlier, like when Yellow Card dropped their cover, we were like, oh, I mean, yeah, I guess I've known this all along. I guess I've been kind of running them from it for no good reason at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think when it comes to the Yellow Card cover, which I think we should talk about, I feel like it couldn't quite live up to the original, which is... I don't know.
I agree. No, you don't have to soften that. It'd be a difficult act to follow. I don't think we're upsetting anyone.
Yeah, it always was a little bit of a sense of relief when it's like, okay, phew, I can sing this now because some modern metalcore band made it like cool or something. Again, it's dumb shit you worry about when you're a teenager. I'm so glad that's not my life anymore. I don't have to like live with the fear of being judged about my music taste because I just don't give a shit anymore. It goes back to when I was 12 and Jay Scott just looks at me and says, if it's good, it's good. Like, it blew my mind then. It totally makes sense now.
Certainly an element of knowing yourself a little better too. Like,
oh yeah.
I think maybe that's a horse that we've beaten to death over the months and years and everything like that. But
well, dude, could you imagine doing Scourge Fest as like a 16-year-old? Just like being so insecure about like people bashing things that we love. It's hilarious and amazing now, but it would have been like the worst thing you could imagine as a 15-year-old.
It's kind of the worst thing I could imagine now.
But like, I mean, think of when like, you know, you heard that someone said Good Charlotte were posers, and it's just like, oh no, I'm not allowed to like Good Charlotte now. Like, it. I'll listen to Michelle Branch for a month. Let's do it.
Right.
All right, my friends, before we get to the Everywhere music video, please allow me just a moment to break in here and thank our Council of Elders. These are our top tier Patreon supporters, the Emo Elders. In this group, we have Johnny Leftwich, Jason Carey, Anonymous, Chris Lukey, Nathan Eshelman, Drew Edwards, Kerry Sanchez, Melanie, Devin Booz, Reed Gober, and Coral Lusty. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. Thank you to everyone in our Patreon who supports the show. There's a couple dozen of you at this point, and it truly means the world to us that you all support the show. If you, dear listener, would like to check out the Patreon, you can head to patreon.com/reminiscent, see the 3 tiers that we offer, and see everything that we give to our Patreon supporters. We've got weekly post shows, behind the scenes videos and photos, polls for upcoming episodes. You get to weigh in on what we do, and we're working on some cool new perks at the moment, so maybe y'all can weigh in on what you're looking for as well. Again, that's patreon.com/reminiscent. Thank you all again, and back to the episode.
I was listening and it was on shuffle, the new re-record of Spirit Room. And
yeah, how is it? I haven't listened.
The cover of Everywhere is okay. I wanted to we're going out of order, but whatever. We're Eat, Pray, Loving, and I think at this moment we'll call this
Laugh, Loving.
Well, you can get the out of here if that's the case. I like to cook with wine, and sometimes I put it in the food. Which is more adjacent to Live, Laugh, Love than Eat, Pray, Love, if I had to argue. Maybe we should do 5 minutes on that later. But no, yeah. So the 20th, and we were trying to line this up. I think the reason it bumped was because everyone was kind of noticing the Carson Daly, Michelle Branch interview clips on Twitter and everything like that. And I think there was a little bit of buzz, I think late last year around, the 20th anniversary and everything like that. Anyway, the version is slow and stripped down, and you should listen to it. I would say haunting. So it's kind of interesting when you do the music video rewatch with that MTV interview, which I'd recommend. It's on YouTube, and we'll talk a lot about it coming up here in a bit when we do the music video. It's a pop song, and she even says like, oh, this is kind of stalkery. Like they took my song and, as anybody would have to at some point, I guess, when it's on the radio, like, oh, this is a song about someone stalking somebody, or it's really kind of difficult. But when they slow it down, the parts about like, are you sure the person the narrator's singing about is even real or of this earth even? You know what I mean? Like the stripped down version really like kind of drives that home more in a way that is spooky. I don't know, in a way that is like the "Do you see me" at the end makes you think like, is the narrator even real? Is like there's like this obsession that it is so consuming that you're just kind of like, I'm so detached from reality because I'm so caught up in whatever this is. But like the slow version, it's not like, oh wow, I know what it's like to have crushes. I'm 13 and life is crazy, and Star 104 has been playing this as a top 40 hit for 7 years in a row.
Right.
And in 15 years from now, Erie will get its first Chipotle or whatever. So like, regardless of the time capsule you grew up in America, like the stripped down version is kind of like, you're like, oh, I guess I never took a moment in 20 full years to be like, wow, the narrator's really going through it. Like, I would say, listen, like, it opened up a whole new, like, it's a new song, I guess. I'm not going to belabor the point. Maybe I already have. But it is slow in a way that is like, ooh, woof. You know, like, it's a fun, new, gut-punchy, like, heavy. There's a heaviness there that I really liked. But, yeah, it's just different. I don't think I'd compare it to the original too much. Now, she re-recorded the actual pop hit version, but there's a track at the very end that is like alternate acoustic stripped down version.
I actually found something here that when she originally wrote the song, it was an acoustic ballad that was half step down from the original, and the chorus was like a stripped down like falsetto kind of thing. But the producer, John Shanks, encouraged her to raise it up half step and quote, sing as vigorously as she could. I think she delivered on what he was asking for, but maybe the extra version that she put in the re-recording was as the song was originally intended. It sounds like it might be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The slow version, it makes so much more sense because you're like, the part of you that's drifting over me, and when I wake, you're never there. But it's almost like a what's that thing where you have night terrors, you freeze in your sleep?
Oh, dude, I
like
had one of those
demon.
a couple weeks ago.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever actually had
No.
one. I'm just like scared of the concept. Anyway.
It's the worst.
Tell me why you're here and who you are. She's singing a song about a fucking ghost, it almost feels. You know what I mean? Like, and when you hear about it, it was written as an acoustic slower thing, half step down or whatever. And maybe maybe the 20th anniversary edition is supposed to bring that back to life. It's just like, I'm pretty sure this person is singing about a dead person. You know, like, I don't know. But when you talk about, and I'm going to bring up all the adjectives again for whatever the writers described this as, there's no glossiness to the pop rock hook, Tom. There's no glossiness. It's all the moody post-grunge rock without any of the breezy Y2K. You just don't get the breezy Y2K in that 20th anniversary version. Okay. Anyway, I'm kind of glad it got made in both ways, but
that's cool.
I don't know. I'm just surprised maybe the listeners of the show won't be surprised that we missed something for years and years, plural, but just like, I guess I just, you MTV, you just like kind of MTV instructed me how to feel about this a little bit, but you're like, wait, she's not singing about a fucking ghost, is she? Anyway, it's a cooler song, slower. I liked it a lot. I'm glad the 20th anniversary version exists. Anyway.
Awesome.
But yeah, I'm glad you weren't too in a rush to compare the yellow card version, because I'm glad that exists also. It made it onto Lord knows enough riding my bike around Erie playlists back in the day, but I don't think we're doing I don't think anybody wins if we play that game and try to rank them, because, well, I think Michelle Branch would win anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
You want to touch on the music video? Not touch on it. Talk about it from start to finish.
Yeah, this is interesting because you had kind of mentioned there was I think it was 2017 or something. There was like an MTV recap where Michelle Branch is watching the video in real time and kind of giving some like behind the scenes insight. I wish we had that for everything we covered.
It was helpful.
Really,
I will say the artist recapping it in a 5-minute YouTube video for MTV would be helpful for every show we do. Definitely.
Yeah.
I was listening, she was on a podcast and we talk about this phenomenon a lot where artists are like, well, I didn't know I'd be playing it at every, I didn't know how often I'd be asked to play it all the time for the rest of my life. And it almost, not that it becomes a negative in that person's life, but there's almost this like, they're always like, hey, play the one I know type thing. Maybe sometimes at some points in her career, there have been shows where perhaps she felt that way. I don't think I'm misremembering the interview too incorrectly or anything, but yeah, she seems to have a pretty level head about like the fact that she was 17 when this double platinum record got released, right? God, she comes right out with like a pretty, like, you can kind of sense the self-deprecating humor throughout, but like, I'm, quote, I'm stalking someone in this video. So like, set the scene for us, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, what's the actual opening shot? Because I watched it quite a few times, but
so she's in this apartment and there's a boy across the way. They live in it's an urban setting, and she's looking into his apartment from across the street from a different building. And she, in the interview, was saying like, "Oh yes, I remember I cast him in the video because he was hot, and I thought he was hot, and he was hot, so we cast him as the love interest." And then she joked about like being far too nervous to even talk to him the whole time anyway. So like her dreams of rock stardom kind of was just like, yeah, he's the one I want. And then just kind of like not really talking to him throughout the entire filming.
But still very much a teenager. Like, oh, I can't talk to him.
Right, exactly. But
that's awesome.
It's a giant apartment. She's pacing around. She's singing. She's playing her guitar. She, in the retrospective, talks about not being able to afford such a rad apartment with that teenage budget, which I think it's always fun to see where people live in these things. Like, damn, they got a nice place.
I mean, if an album goes double platinum, maybe she could afford that apartment.
Maybe.
if she's been touring with Hanson for 2 years, she might have a little bit of scratch. I don't know. But New York apartments, you don't come by them too cheap.
It's possible it would go a little further in central Arizona. It's possible.
Right. Right.
But she made an interesting comment about her hair pretty quick. Quote, "Maybe I should start flat ironing my hair again. All us girls, Avril, we had stick straight hair. Is that going to come back?" Thoughts, Tom? Thoughts on two different things. She says, me and Avril, all those girls. Do you mind like speaking to that first? Because like we were trying to think of all the glossy Y2K pop rock hits that the bands we talked about on the show covered. So like Vanessa Carlton came to mind. But when she's looking at the video, she's like, oh, me and Avril and all them. So like, did that intrigue you at all?
It did, because I don't know if I would categorize them together, but I don't think it's really that far off, right?
Well, no, that's the thing. So like, I don't know how much like content we can squeeze out of us being ill-informed, like in perpetuity. Like that's the show, I guess. But I like in the radio era, I'd go 15 years and be like, oh yeah, Sugar Ray and Everclear are two of my favorite bands, and they're so similar. It's so cool that there's these like bands that are identical that I just happen to like, and I didn't even realize it. And then the more you realize, you're like, they are nothing alike, like not even a little bit. So like you do like some cursory glancing at the Michelle Branch stuff, and you're like, oh, kind of automatically Vanessa Carlton comes to your mind just having lived through the 2000s. But you see this interview, she mentions Avril, there's the straight hair, there's the guitar forward pop, whatever, pop rock. And then she makes a reference to the t-shirt she's wearing in the video.
Oh my God, so funny.
And the Avril comparisons become so obvious. It's like nails on a chalkboard within my own brain, thinking like, why did I ever compare Everclear to Sugar Ray, first of all? No, second of all. First of all, some of the names you think to mention just through your memory. And again, we talked about this a little bit last week, but like sometimes, it'd be nice to do the show and say it as it was instead of how it is in our minds, which we're learning like deeper and deeper weekly that it's like so warped with nostalgia that the inaccuracies just run fucking rampant through the like every second of the show. But people come up to her on the street all the time from the place where her Not My T-shirt thrift store T-shirt find and say like, hey, you had a music video, so it's like the Avril parallels are super apparent just after like glancing at the music video real quick and like Googling some items.
Right. No, that's incredible. I really loved hearing that in the recap. I said earlier, like a New York apartment, I don't know why I assumed they were in New York City. Aren't they?
I don't know if I think it could be metro,
okay, just anywhere. I don't know why I
urban
thought
America,
they were in New York.
Metropolitan America.
Anyways.
Probably. I don't know.
So she's alone in this like massive apartment. She's taking pictures of her neighbor, which, by the way, it's too easy to just like look into your neighbor's windows when you're like out for a walk at night, or like, I don't know, man. Is that just like a natural thing to do? I mean, not taking pictures in it, which there was a good comment about the the focal length on a Polaroid camera, but
oh yeah, that's right. Like, yeah, I'm just like in the video she talks about, I'm just snapping pics. Crazy resolution from across the street, loving it, great tech.
Like super zoomed in.
Yeah, what was it? There was some Jenny Slate essay or something where she was talking about like really enjoying walking by and seeing someone walk to their kitchen with like a plate of food and like people are sitting down. It just kind of like warms her heart. Like, hey, someone's like having a nice evening, and that fucking bumps me up for like humanity. But in a neighborhood, it feels a little like, yeah, it's kind of like, especially when the light's on in someone's house and they don't have the the shades closed or anything. It's just kind of like, oh man, I'm not going to look. I don't know. It feels odd.
Well, dude, I was letting my dog out yesterday morning at like 6 when the baby woke up, and I let him out, and I just kind of like, I don't know, you walk outside, you look around, and I see the neighbor's window, like the curtains opened like maybe 6 inches, and I just straight up saw butt cheeks through it, and I looked away as quickly as possible. But then like a second later, I saw the blinds snap shut. And then I went inside, and our sink is like, there's a window in front of the sink facing that house. And I saw them like poke their head out the blind and then shut it again. So I'm like weirdly afraid that this neighbor that I talk to on a regular basis like saw me see him naked. But I don't know, dude. Yeah, it's weird when the houses are that close together.
Yeah, it's like an entire like running joke in Friends, that like one of the most popular TV shows ever.
Ugly
It's just
naked
like,
guy.
hey, let's gather and embrace the watching. Like it was like very accepted if you can see across the way. Yeah, I don't know, kind of interesting. Anyway, that's what she's doing here. There's a little bit of like, maybe this is them encapsulating the mystical nature of the lyrics or whatever, but she's both in her apartment watching the party that begins to unfold at her crush's house across the street.
Right.
She's also fronting the band that they've brought to play the party.
Right.
So I don't think she, in the interview, spent a lot of time trying to figure out what was going on there. She just says like, that's how it was,
Yeah.
So she's watching kind of in the dark, being like, man, I wish I could be at that party.
But
she's
she is.
also rocking out at the party with the guitar and everything like that.
And then one of the best comments comes up. She says, "We just look like an Urban Outfitters commercial." And she is so right. It's just like they're kind of rocking, but everyone looks like a little bit too happy, like these big smiles plastered on their face. But I mean, they're definitely they're rocking out, man. And Urban Outfitters at this time was as cool as it got. I remember driving, the 120 miles to Pittsburgh to the nearest Urban Outfitters with Hannah to like buy a flannel that no one in Erie would have. It's just like the epitome of cool.
Shout out to this week's sponsor, Urban Outfitters. Still outfitting. Thanks, Urban Outfitters.
Thanks, Urban Outfitters. Oh, God.
Last week it was MasterCard. This week we're getting a lot of big name clients lately. It's pretty cool. You got to keep the lights on, Tom. And Urban Outfitters happens to step up to the plate this week. Anyway, I don't know if this is the pinnacle of rising action of the video, but the song, the party, whatever, whether or not she was there and actually spoke to the guy at the party, I don't think that ended up being the case. But the main character in the music video, she's in her apartment, she's watching this guy's life. A window of opportunity opens. He's on the street below, and she does what?
Yeah, she sees him going down the street, and she like grabs a sweater or a jacket, and I'm assuming runs down 30 flights of stairs to try to meet him outside her building.
Yes, that's exactly how it went down, Tom.
Which was, again, funny because like they were at the same party. He was walking by looking a little bit confused, didn't talk, but get that cardio in.
Yeah, I guess it ends happy. She ends up luring him into her apartment and, slicing up into little pieces, American Psycho style, and freezing his body parts in like this deep freeze cooler she had in the giant apartment. So kind of an interesting creative turn, I thought, for it to be so bloody and gory and homicidal at the end. But no, he comes up, it's kind of this meet cutie thing, and she's like, what's going to happen next when she does the recap?
Yeah.
So she must have taken all the photos down before his visit.
Right. Oh my God. I didn't think about that. What if she forgot to?
Well, hey, TBD. It could have gone in a lot of different directions.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you wanted to touch on the last chorus real quick, like just make a point to, which I don't disagree with whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, kind of referencing the song itself, right? I mean, it's the 77th best pop hook of the century, right?
It's at least top 75, Tom. It's gotta be.
Yeah, so again, coming from like the music production side of things, pop vocals are always the epitome of a very high-end production. And when I heard the song as a kid, I just heard the melody, like the main melody that the main vocals are singing. But there's easily 50 vocal layers in this song. Like if you go back and really pay attention to the vocal stacks in the chorus, it is some of the strongest vocals I've probably ever heard in a song. There's no way I could have possibly appreciated it as a child, but listening back now, it's absolutely insane. And I love the way they double down on the chorus at the end, and they change the melody a little bit to go up higher, and it gets even stronger. It's just, it's a very well-produced song. It's such a catchy hook. Oh, it's just good, man. Like, I really enjoy listening to this kind of guitar-forward pop stuff. Back in the early 2000s, there was definitely this loudness war going on with music production, but there was a production style of vocals that's different than there are now.
Shots fired. Damn. Tom's got fucking feelings about this.
No, man, I love loud productions, but they're...
Oh, never mind.
Like, modern vocals now, it's like there's one track that's so loud and, like, extremely crisp, and back, like, in the 2000s, rather than having, like, one super loud vocal track with others to fill it in, it had like this more natural feel to the vocals, and they just added more layers. And I think it's, I don't know, man. It's just like the vocal layering in and of itself on this song is just like a true fucking piece of art. And I wish I could have been enjoying that for 20 years, but, I'm just kind of getting to it now. It's just good stuff, man. Like, it is a great song. It's very well produced.
It even makes for a great GIF. I would argue that the GIF you can find on Twitter for this song, where it cuts between shots of her rocking the out on her guitar, it's like brightens my day when I see it. And I've seen it like dozens of times a week over the last month, because you guys have tweeted about it, Michelle Branch, daily for a long time, which has honestly made life pretty all right lately. I got to be thankful for that. I will say this. I was joking earlier, not joking, but like ready to crown whoever for whatever, just because like a lot of enjoyment coming from the artists we've mentioned so far on the show. And I was like ready to crown them on Twitter when whenever was talking about this, like godmothers of pop punk, question mark. Right. And Jeremy sagely was like, I think Blondie would probably have like an argument against that, essentially. And as you all are the rock historians of the show, that's the correct statement. But I was ready to throw, and I think we've kind of talked over the last hour a little bit about like, you can draw lines from here, there, and everywhere, but it all starts with probably Blondie. Yeah. If we're talking about godmothers of punk or modern punk or pop punk or anything like that,
I don't know any of their music. My entire knowledge of Blondie is entirely from Jack Black handing the one girl on School of Rock one of their CDs and just said Blondie for Blondie. That's all I know. Is that Blondie exists and Jack Black said their name once.
So they do Call Me, among many others. But the reason Call Me has stuck out to me is someone took a Alvin and the Chipmunks record and slowed it down 2 notches on a record player and uploaded them all to YouTube and called it Sludge Fest. And there's this just like grown men in a studio before they speed it up to sound like chipmunks saying, "Call me on the line, call me, call me." It's honestly pretty tremendous. Anyway, that's one example of, a lot of Paramore inspired looks, at least from I think that band, if you had to draw other lines. Anyway, not to take anything away from some of the Y2K glossy power pop post-grunge moody. I'm f***ing it up. I figured I would be able to memorize it by the time
breezy
we got to the show.
Y2K pop.
Moody post-grunge rock and breezy Y2K pop featuring beastly glossy pop rock hooks.
Thanks, Tom.
I want that to be
Haverford.
somehow in my obituary, both those phrases.
Right.
Whether it's a stretch or not.
Well, I don't know if we did her justice. Probably super
Not at all.
not.
I'm looking back and I'm like, we just this one up. That's for sure.
But it's good. I don't know, man. Like, it's so good. Like,
there's always the episode where we're waiting forever to do it, and we get there. We're just like, I don't want to take any chances because I like it a lot. And then we only say we like it a lot for 40 to 60 to 70 minutes even at times. And it never feels good. But hey, sometimes you eat, sometimes you pray, sometimes you love. And at the end of the day, you just got to live with that. And maybe that's the spirit of the whole damn thing, Tom.
Got to live it big time, baby.
Yeah. You really do. You really do.
Oh my God.
If that producer is responsible for Camp Rock, he's definitely responsible for that Nickelodeon show where Gotta Live It Big Time comes from. Big Time Rush. I mean, there's got to be at least a dotted line. Anyway.
At least. Well, sorry, everyone. Songs of the week.
That's right. Let's get the f*** out of here.
What do you got?
You know, I was looking through what I was listening to in 2021 because I keep trying to look for new stuff, and I'm like, I don't think I reported everything I actually was listening to. Kiss Me More by Doja Cat. It turns out I listened to quite a bit of DojaCat in 2021, so I'm going to self-report that here.
Awesome.
Also, she made for a delightful Dave season 2 storyline.
Yes.
A nice year for Doja.
Yeah. I'm still really, really into Nia Frenz from Japan. Their song 19. It's just one of the best songs I've ever heard in my life. I can't get enough of this band. I don't know if I mentioned it last time that I had to like buy their physical EPs from Japan and have them like shipped over here, which was like so much money for 15 songs. But I have not been this excited about new music since maybe I first discovered pop punk with Simple Plan. Like I'm in it.
Or since you first discovered glossy Y2K pop rock years prior.
Right. Yeah, man, I'm so into it. Next week is going to be them as well. And I only know the like 7 songs that are on YouTube. There's like,
and you're learning the language. Maybe that's the post show. Tom's trying to learn Japanese.
Finally. Yeah, dude. I found a website that's just like, I can read a lot of Japanese now in just a few days. I don't know what it means, but I can spell it out and read it. So
interesting.
Yeah, man.
I would assume reading meant knowing what it means.
Ooh.
I'm excited to explore the comprehension aspect of all this in the post show. And I'm sure all of you are as well. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Yep.
As the train crashes into the concrete barrier and an explosion of fire drips over the countryside. Happening in slow motion. All right. Bye.
All right, everyone. I hope it was worth it. I know we did not do Miss Branch justice, but anyways, it's an amazing song. Congrats to her and her baby and her amazing career that started when Pat, Zach, and I were still whining just some of the worst lyrics you've ever heard into a crappy microphone in my mom's basement. Hit us up on Twitter at _reminiscentfm and tell us how bad of a job we did admiring this legendary singer-songwriter. Thank you all so much. We'll talk to you next week. Bye, everyone.